record button. There we go. Welcome everybody. Hi Noni, I'm Brooke. I'm going to be your facilitator for this. I think we're just going to give folks maybe another minute before we get started to make sure everybody's gotten into where they want to be.
Okay, makes sense.
All right. Has this not been amazing, you all? Noni, I know you just got here from another event. You must get the recording. Must.
Okay. Okay.
It's been sensational.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I want to make sure that Noni has the full 20 minutes to share with us. So I'm going to start just by giving a brief introduction. Welcome again, everybody. We'll be discussing housing cooperatives in this space. Noni Session is the executive director at East Bay Permanent Real Estate Cooperative, a third generation West Oaklander, cultural anthropologist and grassroots organizer. Her research and organizing work spans national and global arenas. In her doctoral work under the umbrella of UNDP in Nairobi, Kenya, Noni carried out ethnographic analysis of international humanitarian strategies and their on-the-ground consequences. After nearly gaining election to the Oakland City Council in 2016, she decided that her community's best solution to rapid displacement and economic instability is to develop an independent cooperative economy. Noni is closely engaged with Mandela Grocery Cooperative, a Black-led worker-owned cooperative in West Oakland that is not only bringing organic produce and local economics to the community, but also working to organize cooperative businesses into the upcoming developments around BART as well. Noni's contributing her visionary energy to homeless advocacy groups across West and East Oakland who are building a movement of houseless and volunteers that are organizing for housing dignity through direct action and policy. We welcome and are so pleased to have with us Noni Sessions.
Thank you so much, Brooke. I appreciate the space you guys have afforded EB-Prec, and thanks for allowing me to pop in at the last hour. I have stacking obligations these days, so it's the best I could squeeze in. I want to start by clarifying, because it's interesting that I think that is it that I have a full 20 minutes or 20 minutes including Q&A? Is that what's the case with that, Brooke?
You have a full 20 minutes. We're going to do Q&A in the larger space after this.
Okay,
so back at 6:30.
Okay, all right. So it's interesting that our work sometimes is a little bit confused with sort of the segments that we find in the cooperative field. One of those segments that we tend to typically associate with cooperatives is the housing cooperative. However, as you notice from the choices of what you signed up for, there's a lot of angles that one can take to the cooperative movement to really build out a full economy. And I think we would argue more so than that EB-Prec is a housing cooperative, but rather that we have looked across the field of economics and community development and pulled some of the best parts of that work to create a multi-stakeholder cooperative that is really a cooperative land and housing investment fund and land and housing real estate developer, which helps create more housing cooperatives, but also creates cooperative economic activity. So I want to talk a little bit about EB-Prec and its anatomy and its mission, so we can get a kind of closer look at not only how we create the outcome that there are more cooperatives in the world, but how we really create the resources and the pathway to getting there. And that is really where we make our innovation. So is it okay if I screen share, Brooke? So can you see the cream colored image right now? Is it visible to you?
Yes.
Great.
We can see it.
Cool. So the East Bay Permanent Real Estate Cooperative is a people of color led, make sure I'm on the right screen. My apologies. A people of color led, democratically governed, multi-stakeholder cooperative that takes land and housing off of the speculative market to create permanently affordable community controlled land and housing. That is cooperatively governed and permanent land and housing for Black and Brown Oaklanders who are from or rooted in Oakland and the East Bay. Our work in order to create that outcome is that we align the technical, financial, and organizational resources necessary to support our Black and Brown Oaklanders and allied communities to do this work. And that's the critical thing, because in our communities, there's no shortage of vision. There's often a shortage of resources, and resources lead to organization. They lead to new relationships, they capital, they lead to access. So in order to do this work, we let three mission pillars primarily drive our technical work, because this really is a political and philosophical movement, this cooperative movement that leads to concrete assets, resources, and outcomes to support solidarity and the durability of our communities long term. So our first mission pillar, Land Without Landlords, refers to our work of removing land and housing from the speculative market to create permanent spaces where people can do this community build, right? Land is, as particularly as Black and Brown peoples, we are critically landless peoples. And what that means is we remain vulnerable to the movements of markets and governments and ideas, instead of having generations to plan forward. If you have to pick up your bags and move every month or every year or every generation, that precludes the idea of building a longer term identity for yourselves and together. Our second mission pillar actually derived from the work of Namwaka Agbo, restorative economics, where we one of our primary functions as a for-profit cooperative real estate developer and as a land and housing fund is we bring in non-extract, that is low interest, low strings attached capital to invest in community-led projects, including residential housing, but also mixed-use housing. We recognize that to restore our economic ecosystem, to build a viable future for ourselves, we have to restore more than just the land and housing asset. There's a lot of intangibles of which we've been dispossessed systematically that also contribute to our ability to live a
Pero
long life.
también contribuye a vivir una vida larga.
So, for example,
Así es que, por ejemplo,
So it sounds like we have a little bit of a technical glitch with translation coming into this room. I'm going to message backstage about it. Adriana, if you can just hold on one moment, I'm going to get this corrected so that Noni can.
okay. Should I pause for 1 second?
I think you can go ahead. They should be able to correct it quickly.
Okay, so just speak while Adriana's speaking.
entonces hablo mientras Adriana habla.
Adriana can't hear me. So yes, if you could just bear with me one moment.
Okay, all right. So, so in terms of the supportive work we do, we are a for-profit cooperative corporation, but we do a lot of our front-loaded work as a social good work. So getting projects positioned for investment and helping develop the project and helping build out the governance mechanism structure. Those are the real values and value added that our work brings to the housing cooperative and
con nuestro
community
trabajo
economic development field.
en vivienda
There are
cooperativa
skill sets and mindsets and
hay
social and civic
habilidades
empowerment and social networks and technical
y las
knowledge
redes
that
sociales
are
y
transfers
el
in our
conocimiento
community that
técnico
will resonate out much further for the
que
long
resuena en
term
nuestra
than the one
comunidad a
concrete
largo plazo.
acquisition. Our third mission pillar,
Nuestra
Heal
tercer
People Power,
misión es
really
para sanar el
refers
poder de la
to the
gente. Esto
opportunity
se refiere a
that
la
the cooperative
oportunidad
move and
la
working together
cooperativa se mueva
cooperatively really
y trabajar en
provides
movimiento
us as
cooperativa
historically
y
marginalized people.
proveer a la gente
We are trying to join in on a
marginada.
just transition and move our futures out
Y
past
movemos
this
nuestro
really
futuro
extractive and moment
y
where the wealth gap is growing
donde
wider,
la riqueza
poverty
se
and inequality
expande
have become
más.
a bare naked daily event that we encounter on our streets. We have to rethink what
Tenemos que
organization
reempezar con
is,
la
what it
organización,
was before
lo que
this
fue
religion called
antes de
capitalist
la parte
production
esa religión del
really seeks to sweep
capitalismo,
the earth. So we want to
que
rethink
de veras llegó a
basic or
destruir o está
organizational
destruyendo la
practices,
tierra. Entonces
lateral
tenemos que
power sharing,
practicar
um,
nuestro
uh,
poder de
more traditional
compartir
methods of conflict resolution,
métodos más
uh,
tradicionales
a rejection of
de
sheer
conflicto y
bureaucratic
resolución
practice
y
to the
una
detriment
práctica
of the humanistic
democrática.
practices that really makes our communities and our grassroots endeavor more
Resolver
resilient,
nuestros proyectos más
with a more
transversales, más
durable outcome for
resiliente,
our
con más
collective work and
resoluciones
how we transfer power,
y cómo
how we transfer
transferimos
knowledge,
poder,
how we
cómo
heal
transferimos
wounds that we've
conocimiento,
sustained together, but also
cómo
have
podemos
also
hacerlo para
perpetrated
sostener
on one another because we are all
y
agents of white
repararnos
supremacy.
entre todos, porque
Um,
todos somos
so
víctimas de la
our three mission
supremacía
pillars really
blanca.
drive our
Nuestros
technical work.
pilares
So although you could
están
take
guiados
them
por nuestro
purely
trabajo
as
técnico.
extensions of the market, they really have to be undertaken as passion project for bringing capital and cooperative organization to our communities. And it makes the outcomes look a little different. It makes the cost of the money look a little different. It makes the time it takes to help build a collective endeavor to be ready for investment look a little different. It makes the technical and legal bylaws agreements we make with our resident owners around holding the land permanently look a little different because it's less driven by profit and more driven by a community build. And so again, that's the gift that the cooperative movement brings us because it works on the basis of 7 principles that are about voluntary, nonviolent, and long-term association that prioritize people over profit. Inside EBPREC as a multi-stakeholder cooperative, we ourselves have 4 investor categories or investor classes, if you will, although they are not hierarchically arranged. Our first category of owner is our community owner, and that is really our critical mass. Because as we're learning, real estate projects have a very long arc. And so although we may vet 20 to 30 projects a year, it turns out we can move forward 1 to 3 projects per year, unless there are some unique circumstances that accelerate that or increase that number. And so really the way to cause a vision like ours to scale is to share more information with more people without levying on them the cost of all of the technical skill it took to build this pathway toward being able to acquire land and housing for our community. So our first body of owners is our community owner. Our second owner is our investor owner, and that is the person who invests in EBPREC to carry out our really impactful projects. And they invest, they buy $1,000 shares at a projected 1.5% return, which is quite modest. But all of us with our money sitting in Wells Fargo or Chase Bank are allowing large extractive markets to hold our capital. Why not let a community project that is approved by the SEC to sell securities and has assurances and prior investments until today leverage that 1.5% to create outcomes for our community that are permanent, that are affordable, that are regenerative, and really meaningful to the futures that we see for ourselves. Our third category of owner is our resident owner. That's the person for whom we do all this work. Ultimately, that person that for the rest of their lives would have been a renter, and even into their old age would have been pulling the same amount and rising amounts of rent out of their pocket to pay to a landlord, who then removes that money from our community ecosystem to build other assets and extract more value elsewhere. Instead, that money cycles back through the ecosystem that ourselves and other impactful, regenerative, cooperative folks in the field are building, where we build our own economic and cooperative economy that continues to float more boats than the prior extractive system to which we all subscribe. Our final category of owner is our staff. And so, excuse me, to back up, the resident owner is the beneficiary of the housing cooperative formation. They are the beneficiary of our technical assistance, of our relationship and our field building, and our long-term asset maintenance. These are the organizations that are created out of EVPREC's existence. Our final category of owner is the staff owner, which is the steward of the land and housing vision. So we do the organizing. We do the organizing of our frontline communities. We organize philanthropic and impact investors. We do the administration. We do the field building. We do the fund building. We do the outreach and the marketing and the branding. So we're really the handmaidens of a vision that although often grassroots organizations don't get access to lending capital, low interest capital, impact capital, because we know in this particular productive model, the poorer you are, the browner you are, the higher your interest rates is. That is, the more expensive your money is. So we have stepped out as an identity that holds that risk and can aggregate the capital and the resources and the time to support our owners, particularly our resident owners and our community owners, getting access and being able to grow their own community vision and their own capacity as we carry out this work. So as I mentioned, we work across several areas in the field. So we are a community organizer where we are working to help groups who have a vision begin to pull together the elements that will allow them to move forward and really initiate a vision for themselves. We are somewhat like a limited equity housing co-op, except for us, when we do find and initiate a relationship with our resident owners, there is no buy-in. And we are currently working on our model so that not only do our resident owners have we know as part of our model, our resident owners have a decreasing cost of their lease share. Just as with homeowners, as you pay down your mortgage, that is for us the cost of the project, at some point your monthly costs go down to maintenance, taxes, etc. And so we're looking for a way to also share equity with our resident owners so that there's some kind of pot they're building as they're part of the cooperative. We are an investment cooperative where we aggregate low interest, non-extractive capital to be on deck and ready for projects that we can invest in. And we to investors and do investor briefings so they understand the potential impact of our projects. We also function as a land trust in that in our bylaws, we protect the land into perpetuity and give right of first refusal first to our resident owners and then to partner co-ops and land trusts in the field that protect land in a similar manner to EVPREC's. And we are a worker co-op, democratically led, lateral power sharing, and to lead to how we use money. And so one of our innovations in the field is democratizing capital. Often frontline communities don't get access to decision-making around how we build a project. So our resident owners get to join in on the process as we capital raise, as we find and acquire the property, as we plan for the way that the property comes onto the market in an affordable manner. our investor owners also are provided the opportunity to divest capital from the field of extractive investments, so that if you don't want your money to go into projects that are taking away from our community, EBPREC and projects like it are a viable alternative. Our community owners also get to join in on the conversation as we determine the future of our communities. So the access to capital and the conversations and decision makings around our capital are a critical way that we reinvest in communities, because you can be completely on the outside or begin to understand some of these flows and maybe even undertake them for yourself. Additionally, in our model, instead of us becoming a landlord where we build wealth for ourselves and take it out of our community, we channel it back into our community investors with a small, modest return, into our resident owners that on this diagram says tenants, who not only have a decreasing cost of land and housing, but also a decreasing value added from being the managers and the stewards of their own land and housing collectively. Finally, we use what might be considered our nonprofit work to build out a wider and wider base of folks who are able to join in and access our vision. We believe that education and technical support is the method of movement building, where you're offering more people more power, more tools for them to emulate, to pull parts from, to share with other parts of their community, and really inspire us around the power, the real power and sovereignty that we have as human collectives. Before this practice of capitalist production swept the earth, every moment before this was a collective economic project. And we're even convinced that the large robber barons, the wealth holders, the hedge funds are an example of individual achievement, but every single one of those are collective funds. Right? The folks who extract from us every day, not one of them is actually an individual. Those are collectives. Collectives are our past, are the key to our future. So I encourage you today to find someone and work with them through all the trouble and all the pain. And we can go far, or we can go far and slow alone, or fast and collectively together. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that, Noni. I don't mind saying, if anybody is not fired up behind that right now, I'm checking pulses. We have been granted a few extra minutes so that if anyone has questions, or Noni, I know you had to compact some of your speech. Apologies again for the overlap with the translation. So if there's anything else you'd like to dive back into, or if there are questions, now is the time. I think we have probably 3 or 4 minutes, so we could get in a couple of questions from anyone who's interested.
I think that I can just give you a little information on our next project that is pretty exciting. So we have, hold on, here we go. Is this the right? We have so far 2 projects under our belt. They are both residential projects, Co-op 789 and Prince Street. And we are now in contract for our next cooperative, which is a mixed-use cooperative, Esther's Orbit Room on historic 7th Street. We are going to be bringing 3 commercial footprints onto the market to be held cooperatively, and we're going to be bringing them onto the market at 50% of market rate because of the interest rates that we bring in from our non-extractive capital. And we'll be bringing 3 residential co-artist housing units onto the market. And this will be the first acquisition along the 7th Street corridor of our 7th Street Cooperative Cultural Corridor Revitalization Plan, because we believe that collective economics, cooperatives housing and otherwise, are really our solution to revitalizing our community. So we're super excited about the Esther's Orbit Room acquisition. And it's especially pertinent because as you look along the 7th Street corridor, um, many, if not all, of the current entitlements are restricted strictly to market rate and luxury housing. What that means is one of our last corridors that holds the history and the story of West Oakland and 7th Street in particular are due to be developed away in generic buildings that are future holding spaces for folks who are not even here yet, as opposed to the 60% of renters in Oakland, who 50% of which are rent burdened, right? Not to mention our 7,000 folks sleeping out on the street without even the basic solution of even being rent burden. So we're super excited to be exploring the ways that collective economics can really start to circulate resources and dollars in our community again. And we want to pin down from the top of the 7th Street corridor, Wood Street, to the roughly the foot at where Mandela Grocery Cooperative is, which is the only Black grocery cooperative we've ever had that sells nutritious, regenerative, natural foods. So I'll open it back up to questions right now. And thanks for listening. You can go to EBPrec, www.ebprec.org to learn more about our work, to learn about the Esther's Orbit Room Project, to invest in the Esther's Orbit Room Project, or to share with your friends, family, or other donor advised funds who you believe should be investing in the revitalization of our communities. You can also reach out to us at info@ebprec.org if you would like our media packet or more detailed information about the project, or to connect us with folks who are interested in supporting our work. Thank you so much.